حطوا عليه الله يوفقكم.
Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, April 15th. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's headlines. Parliament holds a crucial session over its civil servants' disputed wage hike bill as public schools and administrators go on strike to pressure lawmakers to endorse the bill. Sunni Sheikh Arsan Sulaiman dies after being wounded in Palestinian refugee camp Ain al-Hilwa. And the Syrian army seizes one of the last remaining rebel-held villages in the Kalamun region, and forces expand their military operations in the central city of Homs. Parliament holds a crucial session over the civil servants' disputed wage hike bill as public schools and administrators go on strike to pressure lawmakers to endorse the bill. Ahead of the session, the head of the Union Coordination Committee, Hanna Gharib, handed in a memo including the committee's demands about the scale to Parliament Secretary General Adnan Dahir. Civil servants and teachers also rallied outside Parliament, urging lawmakers to approve the salary scale without dividing it, paying it in installments or otherwise reducing it, or failing to approve the same 121% pay hike granted to judges and Lebanese university teachers. Naimi Mahfoud, head of the Private Schools Teachers Association, also criticizes lawmakers who attempted to turn Parliament's session into a closed-door meeting. The UCC threatens to start an open-ended strike if the salary draft law is not approved by the MPs. Sunni Sheikh Arsan Sulaiman, who was taken to hospital last week after being shot in the Palestinian refugee camp of Ain al-Hilwa, has died of his wounds. Sheikh Sulaiman, an official in the Association of Islamic Charitable Projects, succumbed at Hamoud Hospital in the southern city of Saida. He was shot on Wednesday as he was leaving a memorial service for Tariq Safadi, an aid worker who died in the crossfire during clashes at the Miyi camp on the outskirts of Saida. Around 8 people were killed and 10 others wounded last Monday in the fierce clashes at the camp. The gunfight had erupted between supporters of Jamal Sulaiman's Ansar Ullah group and other loyal to Ahmed Rashid, the returned Martyrs Brigades. British Ambassador Tom Fletcher says additional assistance will be provided to the Lebanese army in coordination with other countries during his meeting with President Michel Sulaiman at the Babda Palace. According to a statement released by the embassy, Fletcher underscored that more help would be made available in consultations with Britain's international partners, saying the state security forces should be given the best possible chance to stabilize Lebanon. Fletcher also congratulated the government on progress made in the security plan in recent weeks, which was drafted to restore law and order to several parts of the country, particularly Tripoli and areas bordering Syria. Fletcher said Britain had been proud to support the Lebanese army's efforts through a significantly expanded program of training and equipment in response to the army's requests. The syndicate of property owners are calling for a sit-in to reject attempts by inhabitants to block the approval of the new rent law, which was endorsed by the Parliament. They stressed that the sit-in is aimed at refuting fabrications by the tenants who are staging suspicious demonstrations. The sit-in will be held on Wednesday near the National Museum in Beirut, and they are all demanding President Sulaiman to ink the law, which was passed by the National Assembly on April the 3rd. In other local news, Interior Minister Nuhad Mashnout states that authorities are seeking to reduce the number of refugees coming into the country amid rising concerns that Lebanon has reached a breaking point. He adds that the authorities' plan aims to limit the entry of more Syrian refugees into Lebanon and to undertake certain procedures to determine refugee status and a country's ability to absorb them and the services that can be offered, because donations often are few and come in very late. The plan will be coordinated with the European Union. Mashnout says the Syrian refugees registered in Lebanon make up 27% of the country's population, while in Jordan they make up 10% of the population, and in Turkey just 4%. 150 Syrian refugee families left Lebanon this morning to be resettled in Germany after they fled violence in their home country. Around 300 refugees selected by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees were approved by the German authorities, gathered in Beirut, and boarded 2 buses that transported them to the airport. The refugees, assisted by the International Organization for Migration Workers, who are coordinating with UNHCR, they will head to Hanover in Germany, where they are to spend a fortnight in temporary settlements before being transferred to different regions in Germany. Many of these refugees who left Germany on Tuesday had special cases, such as having children with chronic diseases. Syrians have also fled to Turkey, Iraq, Jordan and Egypt, and the official total of 2.6 million refugees, which understates the scale of the exodus, means Syrians will soon overtake Afghans as the world's biggest refugee population. The Syrian army seized one of the last remaining rebel-held villages in the Kalamoun region, and regime forces expand their military operation in the central city of Old Homs. The army, backed by Hezbollah fighters, retook Asal al-Warid after armed men surrendered to President Bashar al-Assad's forces. The news comes a day after Assad's forces recaptured the Christian town of Ma'loula in Kalamoun, as well as the villages of Sarkha and Jibeh. The capture of Asal al-Warid is the most recent victory in the government's ongoing campaign to retake control of the mountainous border region, which began in November. Elsewhere, the Syrian army advances on the central city of Old Homs, fanning out into the neighborhoods Jurat al-Shia and Al-Hamidiyya. Coming up next, a year has passed since the deadly Boston bombings. Stay with us, we'll be back after more. Welcome back. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov warns Kiev against using force to quell pro-Moscow separatists in eastern Ukraine, saying the criminal act would undermine talks planned in Geneva. One cannot issue invitations to talks while at the same time issuing criminal orders for the use of armed force against the people there, he said in a visit to Beijing. Now, top diplomats from Russia, Ukraine, the United States and the European Union have scheduled for a four-way meeting in Geneva this Thursday, the latest step in a flurry of diplomacy aimed at easing the worst European security crisis in decades. U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland earlier played down U.S. expectations for the summit, although she maintained that it is very important to keep the diplomatic door open and to see what it will bring. In Egypt, 2 policemen were wounded in a bomb attack in central Cairo, according to state television. The unknown assailants targeted a traffic police checkpoint, according to state television, which said that since the army toppled Egypt's first freely elected president, Mohamed Morsi, of the Muslim Brotherhood back in July, Islamist militants have stepped up attacks on security forces, killing hundreds. The violence has scared away investors, hammering the economy of the biggest Arab state. An Islamist insurgency in the Sinai Peninsula, which has defied an army crackdown, has spread to Cairo and other cities as the country prepares for presidential elections next month. Abdel Fattah Sisi, the general who overthrew Morsi, is expected to win the poll by a landslide. A spokesman for Libya's foreign ministry said that Fawaz al-Aitan was abducted in Tripoli's Mansour neighborhood. Masked men in civilian clothes driving a BMW and a pickup truck surrounded the ambassador's car, immediately opening fire. The ambassador's driver was shot in the leg in the attack and has since been hospitalized. One of the ambassador's guards was shot in the arm. The men who spoke the Libyan dialect, according to the Libyan Foreign Ministry, then forced the ambassador into one of their vehicles and drove away at high speed. The kidnappers called al-Aitan's wife and told her the ambassador was in good health. 1 year after the deadly Boston Marathon bombings, the northeastern U.S. city will pay solemn tribute to the victims of the grisly attack that stunned the nation. The solemn ceremonies will take place at the scene of the carnage at one of the world's nation's sporting events in the heart of the city on Boylston Street. Church bells will toll at around 2:49 p.m. the moment the first bomb exploded at the race's finish line on April 15 of last year. The 2 pressure cooker devices, allegedly planted by 2 brothers of Chechen descent who had lived in the United States for years, sent metal fragments flying through the crowd, killing 3 and wounding more than 260 others. Several people lost limbs. Zohar Tsarnev, who is now 20, and his 26-year-old brother Tamerlan were identified thanks to pictures and video footage and eventually cornered by police after a 4-day manhunt that paralyzed the city of nearly 1 million. Secretary of State John Kerry will join Vice President Joe Biden in delivering remarks at a FIFA World Cup trophy tour ceremony at the U.S. Department of State. The State Department is the first U.S. stop for the trophy on the Global Trophy Tour preceding the FIFA World Cup tournament in Brazil, which begins on June 12th. This trophy, which the Vice President has the privilege of uncovering shortly, represents the shared hopes and dreams of billions of people around the world, Kerry said. He said this to the State Department audience. The United States will be among the countries fielding a team in the tournament. Vice President Biden, who attended the last World Cup, tried to convey the tournament's world appeal. Before the trophy presentation, nearly 100 athletes from local youth soccer organizations participated in a soccer clinic at the State Department with DC United players and former U.S. national team members Kobe Jones and Julie Foudy. And finally, the Washington Post and the Guardian U.S. won the Pulitzer Prize in Public Service for revealing the U.S. government's sweeping surveillance efforts in stories based on thousands of secret documents handed over by National Security Agency leaker Edward Snowden. Sir Gisler, who administrated the prizes at Columbia University in New York, said the reporters on the NSA story helped stimulate public discourse on the balance between privacy and security. The stories were written by Barton Gellman at the Washington Post and Glenn Greenwald, Laura Poitras, and Ewan Maxkill, whose work was published by the Guardian US, the British newspaper's American operation based in New York. Speaking from the Guardian offices, Poitras and Maxkill both praised Snowden's courage for leaking the documents and helping make the revelations public. On that note, we end our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. Parliament holds a crucial session over the civil servants' disputed wage hike bill as public schools and administrators go on strike to pressure lawmakers to endorse the bill. Sunni Sheikh San Sulaiman dies after being wounded in the Palestinian refugee camp of Ain al-Hilweh. And the Syrian army seizes one of the last remaining rebel-held villages in the Kalamoun region. And regime forces expand their military operation in the central city of Old Homs. Those are your headlines live on Future Television in Beirut. I'm Yumna Naufal, wishing you a good night.
هيدا حقكم وحصلتوا عليه، الله يوفقكم.